Hi there, beautiful souls watching. Welcome and thank you. I'm Gabrielle, retired medium in Germany, and I like to share some of my otherworldly experiences and insights. So, this is about the second coming of Christ. Who's the Antichrist? And what does the first wave of Ascension mean for all of us? So, starting with the so-called second coming of Christ, I mean, folks, do you really believe that Yeshua, will appear as a human figure in the clouds and will sail down from the heaven? I don't believe that stuff, because I know, as the gnostic teachings led me to research and believe, that it's about the Christ consciousness, that Yeshua, the person, just a normal human like you and me, realized in himself. And Christ consciousness is nothing but the consciousness of all that is, source, that created everything in the universe, and is distributing this consciousness via the emanations from the central sun, the center of our universe, galaxy, whatever. And a subsource of that is, of course, our own sun. It was not for nothing that the ancients that were higher developed in consciousness than we are today, because they came or lived in the golden age, that they kind of worshipped or at least viewed the sun as the bringer of life and everything, because without the warmth and the light of the sun, nothing would grow on this planet. We wouldn't even be here. And it's not only the visible that the sun and the central sun are emitting. Science is now that far developed that they can tell us there are gamma rays and all kinds of invisible radiations and stuff coming via the central sun to our sun, and by that coming upon us. So to me, it's not about the person, it's about the Christ consciousness. And the message that Yeshua left to me is pretty clear. It's about being kind, loving, and forgiving. Not only forgiving others for what they did, from whatever reason or motive, may it be purposeful or not. You also have to forgive yourself for the things you did or did not or did wrong. And I had to learn the hard way and understand that mistakes are nothing to fear, because even making a mistake, if you're still open-minded and open-hearted, you can learn and you get the correction if you're wrong via the experience of the mistake you made. So everything is open for us. It's up to us. And of course, there is not only the kumbaya paradise and everything is already done and we're just kind of putting our ass into higher consciousness or paradise or whatever. We have to choose. The free will choice, exercising our free will, is pivotal right now that we, as we are told, entered fourth density or dimension. And to reach unity consciousness, the consciousness of oneness, the Christ consciousness, of course you have to polarize. That does not mean to judge another one who's of a different opinion than you are. There is a 4D, fourth density dimension, negative and a positive. I spoke about that in an older video on my YouTube channel, the path of the left hand and the path of the right hand, which is well known in spiritual traditions. And I never understood how, even as a child, maybe thinking childlike, but less infiltrated and not yet so programmed and indoctrinated by education, my parents, teachers, authorities, church, whatever. I never understood how the Jews could not recognize their own Messiah appearing in their society as Yeshua, and they even persecuted him, and they are still waiting today for their Messiah to come back. So it's a very personalized idea, like we in the Western world tend to personalize even the idea of God as kind of an old man with a white beard and in a white gown, like a night gown, and with wings maybe on his back. It is a force. Source is the life-giving force that enables everything, creates everything. And this force is conscious, and it's loving and benevolent. And of course, it wants its creation to kind of find out by itself, after good and bad experiences, where it wants to go. The same way like source itself, or choose a different way. And it does not want kind of unaware followers on their knees, just asking mommy and daddy, aka source or God, do everything for me and tell me where to go and what to do and what not to do. Then you will never grow up, and you will never really develop your godlike potentials that are, as the Gnostics and Hermetics in their texts say and state, to me very true, because it resonates with me. They state that we are a full fractal, meaning a copy, a small copy of the one original source, all that is. And we have this spark, this spirit spark within our soul, and our soul is connected to the human vessel in our hearts. So no wonder that Yeshua said, do not go into the church to preach, go into your own heart. Whatever treasures you accomplish inside, within, in your heart, these are the treasures you will have in heaven when you return. Or saying, in my Father's house there are many mansions. What does that mean? Well, that's all the densities and dimensions that exist, whether we know it or not. And there's so much more, kind of in the invisible all around us and within us, as the mirror principle teaches us that, like one of the first hermetic laws says, as above, so below, which can be altered into as within, so without. So if you look at your life, it tells you pretty clear what's inside of you, but most of us don't want to see that, because sometimes it's uncomfortable. We're not perfect to our human standards, but the perfection of divinity is something totally different than we imagine with our limited three-dimensional human consciousness. And unity consciousness is not about being everybody the same. It's about being united in diversity. If you want to be free and find your own way, you also have allow that to your neighbor, even if he's choosing the contrary of what you prefer. So it's not about politics, it's not about picking a side, it's about your own inner soul choice. Where do you want to go? And in the end, it's quite simple. Do you want to go with light and love, or with fear, darkness, and control? So that's about the Christ consciousness and the second coming. I think at the end of the great cycle where we are right now, as Mayan and Hindu calendars tell us, it's about realizing the Christ consciousness within us. That is what Yeshua showed us. That's the way he showed us. And some people nowadays, I see the titles in the YouTube videos, quite amusing sometimes. They want to pinpoint the Antichrist onto one person. I don't think it's like that. You know, if you get the message that Yeshua brought from Source to all of us about love, kindness, and forgiveness. So that is the Christ, more or less, the Christ consciousness. So use your common sense just for 1 minute, folks, please. What can be the Antichrist then? Of course, it's the spirit of hatred and unforgiveness. And that can befall a single person, whole groups, and even populations of whole countries. So it's not about one person being the Antichrist, it's the spirit of hatred and unforgiveness. And you can witness that in some negative commentaries. You know, even after one of my channelings on my YouTube channel, where I had to say through my mouth, because it was a channeling, you need only to be 51% positive. So some people could only utter negative comments in the comment section as an answer to that. And by that, they just show who they are and where they are at. And I really try not to judge them, because Yeshua told us, do not judge. By the way you judge, you will be judged, not by others, but by yourself, as I experienced in my own near-death experience, where I had the life review, and there was no one else, no angels, no God sitting on a throne. It was just me alone, and I was confronted with the pictures of my life up to that age when I had my NDE, and it was me, myself, judging me. So there were points in my life where I could not forgive myself, and this is the message of Christ. You also have to forgive yourself. If Source would not be loving and would not forgive us for our mistakes and wrongdoings, no one of us could ever enter, so to speak, heaven. So that should be clear. That's about the Antichrist, what I do think about that. And of course, you can think whatever you want. You know, if you use only half of your brain, the male rational logic side, that's like riding in a car with only 2 wheels or coming on just 1 leg. And you want to tell that's the only holy truth, the one and all and only truth there is. I learned with the Rosicrucians I studied with for over 20 years. If someone appears in front of you telling you he or she has the only one and only truth, better take your legs and run. That is hybris, and the best example for a big, fat, spiritual ego. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not yet able to discern their ego's voice talking only in the head from their soul's or higher self's voice. And it's about melting with our higher self that has already so much more knowledge and the connection to the soul, and more or less knows everything and tries to guide you by showing you signs that you sometimes don't get, like these white fluffy feathers that you encounter. Have you ever seen totally white birds flying around? I still wonder how spirit manifests these feathers or delivers them by whatever kind of bird. You know, when I find these white feathers in my garden, just opening the door and boom, there is one again, you know. I don't have white birds in my garden. We don't have white birds in Germany. The only white bird coming to my mind is maybe the swan or the seagull. And they're not in my garden. So how do these white, fluffy, kind of angel-like feathers come right onto my doorstep? That's a clear sign of a spirit. And there are no coincidences. This is what human limited view kind of reduces something like that to. Already another one of the hermetic laws tells us there are no coincidences. It's all synchronicity, and synchronicity is the way how spirit, source, all that is, via all the light helpers, tries to communicate with us all the time. Only we don't listen and we don't see because we are so busy with our ego stuff, our normal mundane life or whatever, you know. So if you start on a spiritual path, the first thing is know thyself. So you have to observe yourself and observe your thoughts. And by that you learn to distinguish between the ego's voice and the voice of your higher self or your soul, which is a small voice in the beginning because it never suppresses, it never forces anything upon you. It's the ego that's forcing, that's judging, that's gossiping and whatever, you know. I even had the funny experience after my first interview when my guides had nudged me to go out and share at Alex Ferrari's Next Level Soul podcast about my NDE, because that's kind of an easy entrance, because a lot of people wonder, is there an afterlife? Does it exist? And how is it? And what will happen there? So I found, reading the comments, two seemingly elderly women kind of gossiping, like being at a coffee table with their friends about me. She did not even change her voice while channeling, so this can't be true. And another one answered, I think she only channeled her higher self. And by that, these poor two women, I wish them the best, showed that they did not understand anything about the spiritual path, because the next step for all of us is melting with your higher self, which has more knowledge than you have in your little human limited brain and perception and consciousness. So even if I would only channel my higher self, that would already be great. And people channeling their higher self, well, they're better off than the people that only channel. We channel the whole day long. And most people channel just their chattering monkey mind, their ego consciousness, their half brain, the left brain, the male rational logic, and missing out on the right brain, the holistic, intuitive, and female. And it's about combining both into a unity so that you have a whole brain functioning and working for you. And the brain has to go is all its orders from the heart, because the heart is our organ of perception. There you resonate with love and truth, and you get the truth bumps. Your body shows you what you encountered, whether it feels good and resonates with you or not, and you feel kind of repelled. We have to learn to listen to these signs we get all the time. If you're really willing to listen, then, well, you're welcome. You're on the good path then, because you're growing and learning and developing and evolving. So, and what does the first wave of ascension mean that is upon us this year, 2025? I pondered about that a lot, and I remembered certain texts that I read with the Rosicrucians and encountered myself, and there is some very good material like the Urantia books, channeled material, very special because it wasn't channeled through a person. It kind of materialized after a certain group had pondered about certain themes and topics. And it contains a lot of stuff, very detailed about the true human history. I can only recommend that book, although it's like a Bible. It's a very big and thick book, and you will be busy with that for quite a while. And another thing is the Law of One material. I think it's 5 books or so, which is channeled material, but under very specific circumstances. The questioner was a scientific guy, so sometimes it's not that easy to read because of the phrasing. And the woman who was channeling, she was kind of in full trance. And they even got advice via her in channelings how to prepare the room, what to put there and what to remove, and how to prepare before channeling to get into, an elevated kind of state of vibration and frequency. So there is some good material out there, which is the closest I found to what I think is really truth, and also feel and resonate with that. And if you get busy with that material, you can even train your psychic senses and abilities by feeling inside and listening what your body shows you, whether it resonates or not. So you don't have to believe anyone, not even me, and I don't want anyone to believe me because of what I say. I want you to find your own resonance and follow that. And it's not for nothing that Buddha said, the way is the goal. You need experience to come into resonance or into repulsion that shows you where to go and where not to go. If you place your belief in anything or anyone outside of you, Well, then you open the door for manipulation. Because all the higher beings in the other higher realms, they can read us like an open book. They know all our traits and our vanities and flaws. And if you don't know that about yourself and are not honest with yourself, then you're easy to be manipulated. A lot of men always fall, and that's a very old story through all spiritual traditions, for the so-called honey trap. They can't control their sexual desires, and they fall for women, and it's one woman after the next. It's about conquering, and then they feel, wow, I'm such a good guy or whatever. It's more happening, unfortunately, with men than with women. But women also fall for the honey trap, about a guy that feels so false to me and I don't sense anything. I listened to him when he suddenly popped up in YouTube in the beginning, and I got the feeling, oh, there's no one there. I don't sense any energy, as if he's just kind of a whole empty puppet or whoever is inhabiting that space, because there is no empty space. Another kind of cosmic law. So, what I read in the comments about that guy who was so obviously not okay for me, my own choice, no judgment, it's what I resonated and felt. The only thing that some women were able to write in the comments is stuff like, oh, he's so handsome. Is that all? That's, to me, sorry, pretty poor, because you're just dealing with the outside, with the appearance, and you don't use your heart to feel resonance or repulsion. Your heart tells you what is good and right for you and what is not. So we better learn to follow that. And all the ancient mystery schools, traditions, and initiation rites, they start with know thyself. To learn to discern the voice of the ego from the voice of your soul and higher self within you. So I think that the first wave of ascension is the rush of energy and consciousness and gamma rays working on our consciousness and DNA that we receive by the sun of our solar system coming from the central sun. And well, there is a cycle our sun has of 11 years, so-called solar maximum and solar minimum. And it's well known in science that in a solar maximum, with the occurrence of more sunspots and sun flares, it has an effect on human consciousness, either going to war and fighting a lot, or going into more peaceful epochs. But the repeating of wars we have through all our human history, as far as we know, and even beyond the Great Flood, civilizations before, they all had to master that kind of step and threshold. Do you eliminate your civilization by going to war with another civilization or not? And for example, the Atlanteans went to war, while the Lemurians did not. So that can tell you a lot. So the first wave of ascension is working on us, on our consciousness and our DNA, as we are currently kind of running on that 2-strand DNA, but we are innate with a 24-strand DNA, which can of course not be activated all at once. Then you would explode or implode or instantly burn. So it's going step by step. And sometimes it's baby steps. And that's good, because we need to stomach and digest all the stuff that's coming and entering us. Science isn't even really clear about what is consciousness, you know. Well, there are some definitions, but I think that's not yet the end. My guides even told me that the Big Bang is not the whole or true kind of explanation. It's what we know right now, but we will know so much more tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years. So I think this kind of working on us, our consciousness and DNA, during the first wave of ascension we are under right now, with more higher frequency energy coming in, is also activating more of the psychic abilities. You suddenly feel stuff, or you feel presences, and come to understand that we are not alone, we have never been, and we will never be. We are like in a fishbowl, and all the other dimensions are stacked one upon the other, and just different in frequency. So the so-called dead people, spirits of the dead ones, our beloved, deceased loved ones, they are all around us all the time. And they look out for us and watch over us. As they are family, they are bound to us by the bonds of love, and they won't harm us. So you can trust in that, and you can have more trust into them than into living people, because everybody has an agenda. Most people want something from you or from others, you know. So a lot of psychic abilities will come online in the first wave of ascension, more and more. And as our society still negates that, people very programmed might think they are going crazy, seeing fancy colors suddenly from out of the corner of their eye. Well, that's energy, and energy is vibration and frequency, and you can translate energy, frequency, and vibration into color or even into sound. That's where music comes into play. And we've got everything we need. We have a voice, we can produce sound, we can sing and chant, and by that kind of raise our frequency. So there will be something like a being pulled up into higher consciousness for all of us, and then we will have the input, and we'll have a much wider, broader view about the bigger picture in all of creation. And after that, we will kind of drop down into our more or less normal consciousness, and then it's up to everyone else, every one of us, to make the conscious choice, whether you accept the truth from higher consciousness or not and deny it. I'm pretty sure that mainstream media and the world around society will categorize this experience as a mass hallucination or something like that. You know, I don't believe in that. I had the feeling I already sometimes right now am kind of pulled up, and suddenly I have insights where I don't know where they come from, but they resonate so true deep within my heart. And I just feel and know with every cell of my body and my bones, yes, that's right, that's true. And that's where I want to go. It's up to you where you want to go. If you observe yourself just watching a video or reading a book, you can find out pretty soon that after maybe 3 to 5 minutes, that's our normal attention span of the ego, the chattering monkey mind, you are already by some trigger word or whatever kind of going arm in arm with your own thoughts or memories somewhere else, and you only listen with one half ear to the rest of the video. You're already gone, you're drifting, you're no longer focused. And I had to make a video about focus as well on my YouTube channel. Usually our focus is like a gone wild water hose in our garden, which no hand directs onto a special area or topic. So we have to learn as a second step to focus. And intention is also very important. You have to inform the quantum field around you about what it is that you want. Some people said in the comments, wow, it seems so easy for you to go into channeling just with 3 deep breaths and then it's there. Well, I know exactly the point when I set the intention that at that moment I wasn't aware of that it happens exactly like that. I did a cruise with Esther Hicks because I wanted to experience her life and her channeling, and I saw her standing on the stage and she just took 3 deep breaths and then she started channeling. She's a bit talking too fast for my taste now because she's kind of firing like a machine gun. And I like the things more, slowly so that they can sink in and I can watch how I resonate or whether I resonate with that. But okay, everybody has his own style, that's okay. Someone even said he had to go into the menu and enhance the speed of my video because he couldn't endure how slow I was talking. Well, up to that person. I sometimes even have to do that the other way around with other people I listen to, and I don't listen to many because, I want to keep my channel clear and not be front-loaded with other people's information. But sometimes I have to slow down the speed because they're just hammering everything out so fast and they don't leave me any chance to feel resonance or not, and I need this time. The soul is much slower than our kind of fast thinking and fast chattering monkey mind. So it's important to observe yourself, and as you can learn about the mirror principle, the observer is the observed. That's exactly the match of frequency, and that is how the ancients levitated stone and constructed things with consciousness. So we will all have the chance to experience higher consciousness in the first wave of ascension, and we will all experience some more access to our psychic senses, and after that we can exercise our free will choice. So that is what I think about the first wave of ascension, second coming of Christ, and the Antichrist. And of course, you can believe whatever you want. Whatever I say, people just after 3 minutes, they're gone off with their own thoughts and memories, and they don't listen any longer, so they make of what I say whatever they want. being not focused sometimes, or not used to observe and watch yourself and your reactions, and also watch your thoughts. Okay, I've been there, I've done that, and I sometimes, even nowadays, I catch myself watching a video. Suddenly I went off. When I notice that, then I go back to the point and rewind the video to the point where I remember that I was still fully focused and there, listening and receiving. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you find something inspiring in that for yourself. And I'll leave you with that. I send you all my love, blessings, love and light to you on your soul path. Dear beautiful souls, fellow humans, fellow souls. Bye.